You See Me. That came out, that was kind of like an explosion. Because we're at the time of where now it was turning out, it was really kind of looking indirectly, right or wrong. There was no ego involved with it. And I could speak totally for myself, but it was appearing like we were creating these songs and we were going to do a White record with Alan White, and a lot of the fire of the material was starting to come out of what Ted and I were doing, which was fine because it was basically that whole Loyal CD.
This one was the last song written for the record. So I'm initially a keyboard player. I've taught myself other instruments since then. This entire record, the songs that I wrote, were all written on guitar. The Way You See Me is very much written with unusual guitar tunings and unusual fingerings, and written that way. I approach guitar not through the eyes of a guitar player. I do what sounds best in my head. So on Way You See Me, for example, there's a couple guitar lines here and there, some little solos that bounce in between your vocal. And I remember when Karl heard them, he said, well, that's really strange, a guitar player wouldn't do that. And I said, oh, it sounds right to me. So he would play these things, and I think his interpretation of them far exceeded really what the initial idea was. And so that kind of back and forth and figuring out how we were going to play these songs together. Karl learning the parts that I had played, and he was very faithful to what we had done on Loyal. During Loyal, during the recording of it, we did this in 2004 is when this was recorded, and Alan was the beginning of the 35th anniversary tour was happening, so he was kind of in between tours when he was here. I'd get him into the studio and we'd get stuff done. And Billy Sherwood and I had been talking about doing a more drama tour. We didn't call it that at the time. We called it a Conspiracy and Treason tour because of Billy's band, and he knew me from Treason. So it was kind of this Conspiracy and Treason tour. The way things were put together during that time, there was pressures. Now, we had a number of initial pure concepts at the beginning. I'm going into a little bit of the politics at the time here, but there were pressures from then Yes management. There were pressures from individuals. Billy and Jay Shellen, they had certain concerns about management, and there was the beginning of the type of politics, strangely to say, that I have seen in Yes. And as a matter of fact, the fractures and alliances were pretty much a carbon copy of Yes, where you had Kevin and I together, Karl kind of floating in between, and then you had Steve and Alan very much allied together. And during this particular time, Kevin and I were feeling a fair amount of pressure and concern about the birth and delivery of the baby that we've been working on for the last year or so. When I wrote Way You See Me, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Kevin was dealing with pressure by medicating with alcohol at the time. And I saw a great friend, a wonderful talent, who was questioning himself. The Way You See Me was my hoping that he would see that other people see you great, and that I recognized that he was looking at himself negatively. He didn't feel himself worthy, and I thought the exact opposite. So when I wrote The Way You See Me, it was very much of the line of, hey, look in the mirror, that guy coming back at you is pretty fantastic. I don't think Kevin got that. As a matter of fact, it took me about 10 years to actually tell him that that's what it was written about. But it's okay, when I still look at the lyrics that he came back, on a subconscious level, he knew. And so that's kind of how...
Well, and it did, and indirectly I did. I took a psychological approach to it, and I was looking at it because there's the simplicity of, in a lot of ways, there's a philosophy of, what you're interpreting from someone else, or what you're conveying on someone else is actually just indirectly what you're feeling. So indirectly, it's like saying, oh, that individual's mad. Well, the way you know they're mad is simply because you're mad about something. So the way you see me, I wanted to go a little deeper, which you did, and that is, you were right. It's like I might have thought, what people thought who I was. You have no idea what's going on the inside, and that's all human beings. Is sometimes we don't give ourselves the opportunity to be aware that the way you're looking at someone, it may not be what you think it is. And so many times, I know myself, I've done that where I've gone down avenues only to find out later that that wasn't what that person thought at all. There's so many times, so many scenarios where the way you see me, you might want to bring that forthright, in your cognition. Because you might be saying something and you might be trying to construe something that's bad, where in reality is that if the way you see me, if you remember the way you see me, it's like, well, that may not be it at all.
You could be wrong.
You could be wrong. And if you're wrong, you could miss out on something, because you thought the way you saw me was the way you were. But it worked out great.
Yeah, and so for me, that was my love song to Kevin, that, hey man, you could be wrong. Looking in the mirror and the way that you think people see you, you could be wrong. And I will say that Kevin was wrong about himself at the time. However, he's fully realized all of that. He's put his life together. I can't say enough great about my good friend Kevin Currie. And this song really was, hey, you're fantastic, man. You're a great guy. You're not seeing yourself in the proper light. But again, at the time, if we go back to the pressures that were there, and anyone who deals with a band at of a yes caliber, I mean, you've seen this in Heart, you've seen this in these other bands where a fracture can end up really causing a lot of strife, pressures, emotions, and we were going through that at that time. All of us, certainly not just Kevin and I know Alan was under undue pressure from a number of sources, including his management, same with Steve, and actually I don't think Karl's going under any pressure at all. He's pretty much, no matter what happens, Karl just kind of moves along. He's pretty much immune to everything. I'm wondering if he's immune to gravity as well. He's just the most balanced individual I think I've ever met.
Absolutely.
So that was kind of the story behind that place.
The way you see me.